Okay, today I decided to do a dual battery isolator video slash isolator relays. We have two different types. You have an actual battery isolator right here, and then you have the relay version here and here. This is an 80 amp, this is 120 amp, this is 200 amps. Depending on your application, most people use these for golf carts, ATVs, small application that doesn't require a lot of power, basically. Starting with this, you have two connections to the bottom and two to the top. One would be positive, one would be negative. Negative would always be ground anywhere on the frame. Positive would come from two different sources. You can either hook this up to your accessory on the ignition, or you can put that on the toggle switch and have it on and off whenever you desire. Basically, this would activate itself through the power, which then would activate these two to connect, and your main battery and your auxiliary battery would merge as one, and you can either use it to charge the second battery, or if you put it on a switch, you can decide whether you want to turn the second battery on or off, or allow it to be charged by the main battery. So that's the option that you have. With the battery isolator, it's real simple. You'll have main battery, you'll have alternator, and you would have auxiliary battery. Now this pin right here is used most common in alternators with external voltage regulator. In other words, for instance, Chevy models would have a wire that runs to the alternator's pigtail cable connection that is also known as the sense wire. What you would do would remove that sense wire off the alternator and run it to here. So again, you would have your main battery, your alternator battery, your sense wire, and your auxiliary battery. For those of us who have old school cars or have an alternator with an internal voltage regulator, you do not need to use this. So in other words, if your alternator only has one wire, you do not have to use this. Now if it's the one that has the actual wiring with the sense wire on the pigtail, you would remove that wire off the pigtail and have it run to here. With the last one, this one works just like this one does. It just holds a bigger capacity of amperage. So again, you'll have four connections up top. The two smallest ones represent plus and minus. Whichever one you have running plus and minus, it doesn't matter. You can have plus here, minus here, plus here. It doesn't matter. Now the two opposing ones, bigger connection, represents main battery and auxiliary battery. Main battery would be the one up front, and auxiliary would be the one next to it or in the back. And basically, again, you would have positive and negative. Positive would come from either two power sources. The auxiliary, which is when the key is turned on, or again, you can have it on the toggle switch, and whenever you're ready to use it, the second battery, you could turn it on here, or you can keep this on and allow the second battery to be charged and then turn it off later. So those are your options. Now for a good connection, you would use a connector terminal ring such as this, which will easily slide onto there or here or one of these, and it requires that you crimp it down to a 4 gauge wire, a 4 gauge positive wire, which would be the best wire to use in charging cases. 4 gauge and 0 gauge are what's, the best for you. You would stick in here, crimp it down, and apply it from battery to isolator, and from isolator to auxiliary battery. These are 4 gauge ring terminals, and you can get them at your auto parts store. You can get them at Lowe's, Home Depot. Go into electrical section, you'll find these there. Also, 4 gauge wire again is the recommended usage of charging. If you have heavy audio system, 0 gauge would be the best. And also would like to have your alternator upgraded as well. Have your ground wires running 0 gauge as well. And that's about it. Also, another thing, when you're using a battery isolator and installing a second battery, it is always good to have a fuse on both ends of the connection. So a fuse on this end of the connection and a fuse going towards the other end of the positive connection before it gets to where you're trying to get it to. That way you can protect the isolator, you can protect your vehicle's electric system, and also you prevent fires that way also. Because without a fuse, a wire gets too hot and shorts out. When this shorts out and makes contact with the frame's body of the car, you're in big trouble. So again, with every wiring, always use fuses from the source to the wire. You fuse it, and from the wire to the source, you fuse it. So be in between the isolator and this wire would be a fuse, and between this wire and the auxiliary battery there would be a fuse on both ends as a precaution. Again, these are isolators, relays, and this is the actual isolator itself. They all work pretty good depending on what type of system you're running them on. And you can either have, again, a small application as an ATV, a golf cart, or all the way up to a 2,000 watt sound system. And you don't want to kill your main battery, or you want your secondary battery to have juice constantly, or only when it's, time to go into competition or whatnot. This is a Stinger 200 amp high current isolator. This is a Northern Industrial battery isolator, and this again is a Wright Warner's 80 amp battery isolator relay. So either choice you have is a good choice depending on your application. Don't forget, again, the fuse is very important. Your 4 gauge ring terminal is very important, and your 4 gauge power wire is very important.